Yo, what up? It's Damizza. Check me out on the Bootleg Kev podcast. Is that right?
Hey, we're about to kick off another interview brought to you by Hardin. That's right. If you're in Vegas, it's the #1 dispensary in the country, the craziest selection of premium cannabis. And all you got to do is shoot them a follow, Hardin_Las Vegas, HardinLasVegas.com. When you're in Vegas, tell them I sent you. Let's get into the interview. Hey, Bootleg Kev podcast, man. Special guest here, a legend in the game, Damizza, a.k.a. Damian Young.
Legend in my own mind.
Welcome.
No. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you having me, man.
You know what's crazy is, like, as a kid, I knew your name. I wasn't in radio as a kid, obviously. So I didn't know that you were the program director of Power 106.
Well, you know, that's actually kind of it's interesting because I was the senior director of programming.
Okay, yeah. What were you doing at Power 106 and what years? Because I just remember you from the Shake Shice shit.
Okay. Well, it's actually a little longer story.
Yeah.
I was in Santa Barbara doing alternative radio when I started at 12 years old under Michael Newman and Steve Smith.
Yep. Rest in peace, Steve Smith.
Yes, rest in peace, Big Dog Steve Smith. And they were the local program director and music director. Right. So I would just call up and bug Michael Newman, who was the night jock. I'd just call and, just a fan wanted to win stuff. And finally I became his intern. And at 17, I became the program director of that radio station.
Jesus.
And I broke a group called Garbage.
Shout out to Garbage.
Yeah, Garbage was dope.
A chick singer, right?
Yeah, Shirley Manson.
Yeah.
Which was
Shirley
crazy.
Manson, yeah.
And, what I noticed is the producer. Butch Vig, who did Nevermind for Nirvana and then Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream. I said, well, wait a minute. If he just did those records, then this little demo that I got from Almo Sounds that just said produced by Butch Vig, it means it's probably going to be pretty big.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if he's behind it.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, and that's the first time I realized, okay, so producers. You know what I mean? That's when it clicked about producers. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take 3 songs off that album and just start playing them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so the label was like, yo, you broke Garbage. So when they blew up and they went platinum, they said, well, we owe you a favor. What do you want? You want to do like a flyaway? They're doing the Weenie Roast. They're going on tour with Smashing Pumpkins. You want to do something? I said, no, I want them to come to Santa Barbara and do this 200-person club. And they said, I don't think you heard us. They went platinum. They're going on tour with Smashing Pumpkins, and they're doing that. And I said, well, I guess you guys aren't, your word doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And they were like, so they called Butch Vig, and they said, there's this like 17-year-old, 18-year-old program director in Santa Barbara who broke, the records and all this kind of stuff. Because even like Kevin Weatherly at K-Rock and all those guys would drive to Santa Barbara.
Right.
And they'd hear this alternative station and they'd hear these records. And, I'd be pulling like, when I'd go to London or something, I'd hear like Pennies, Nevermind, or Pennies from Smashing Pumpkins. Mm-hmm. It was like an import. And then I'd make it a current on our station as exclusive content. And everybody would be like, where the hell is he finding these records and doing stuff like that? So that's also where I learned about exclusive content. Investing in artists early and having exclusive content was like the key.
Especially back then, because radio was like really that's where you heard stuff first.
Yeah.
There was no internet. There was no Instagram.
Yeah. It was
no MySpace. Yeah.
It was what it was.
It was like you read about it in the source and then you heard about it on the radio or you saw it on BT, Yeah,
it was nuts. So anyways, Butch Vig said, well, did you make the promise? And the rep said yes. And they said, well, I guess the one day off that we have between the Weenie Roast and the Smashing Pumpkins tour, we're doing a show in Santa Barbara. So the whole industry was like, how did the 17-year-old, get a platinum approaching double Butch Vig in a 200-seat club that sold out in half a minute and the streets flooded and, all of this news press and all this. So Bruce St. James came to that show.
Bruce is who was my first PD ever.
Oh, wow. I love Bruce St. James.
Yes, I love Bruce.
He got me my job at Power. So I saw Bruce there and I said, look, I love I had to do alternative because it was a rock town.
Right.
I wanted to do hip hop first.
Right.
But they said that's just not going to work.
Right.
And even in LA, when we wanted to switch to doing, West Coast rap, I mean, you have to remember when I got to Power, they were playing everything from Boys to Men 1 Second, then Mobb Deep, then Artie the One Man Party, then,
Right.
Richard Humpty Vision for one show. Shout out Richard Humpty Vision, my dog. Bad Boy Bill. All of them. They said, all we have is this Sunday night coast to coast show board op position. And I was like, great, I'll take it. And they're like, so wait a minute, let me get this straight. You're programming 2 stations in Santa Barbara, but you want to come and board up on Sunday nights at Power 106. I said, look, I'll sweep the damn floors. Like, whatever you want me to do, whatever. So I walk in to board up for this show, and there's Curtis Blow.
Oh, shit.
And I was like...
so what year is this? Like,
this is, 95, 96?
Okay.
So Curtis saw how nervous I was and stuff, and he was like, look, just don't mess up, and I will tell you a story of hip-hop every night after the show. And I was like, kid in a candy store. So fast forward about a year, Curtis leaves. The next one to come in to do that show is Ice-T.
crazy.
His engineer for like Ricochet and all that was this guy named Vacek. Well, when I was like 14, I wanted to be a rapper. Right. So I was working in Burbank at the studio called Milagro. In the back of that studio was a studio called Back Room where Battle Cat was working. And he was doing stuff like Quo and Tom Jones and all this kind of stuff. So like, and this is why I say about mentorship. This is where I learned mentorship from. It's because there was this one night where Battle Cat erased all of his sounds. He's in the back and he's like, I just lost every sound I ever made, flipping out. And here comes this little kid wanting to be a rapper, little white kid from Santa Barbara, and says, hey, but what was that guitar sound you used on Quo? Oh, well, wait a minute, Michael Jackson sent over the tape and da-da-da-da-da and da-da. Totally stops all of it and takes the time to tell this kid, some game.
Right.
And I'm like, click, another one about mentorship. Steve Smith, Michael Newman, Battle Cat. Okay. That's how that works. You know what I mean? Like, and seeing interviews with Michael Jackson was saying, like, where I come from and the school I come from, if, a kid comes up and says, that's a nice shirt, you take it off and you hand it to him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the artist and mentorship school that I came up in. You know what I mean? So anyways, Ice-T does the same thing. Vacek, like what I was saying about Vacek, is the engineer happened to be, Ice-T's engineer. So when I saw Ice-T the first time, I said, oh, I know Vacek. Then we started talking
right.
and, blah, 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 blah. So Ice-T started teaching me. Well, Bruce gets ready to leave Power 106.
To go to KKFR.
To go to KKFR as the PD. And he says to Michelle Mercer, you might want to talk to that kid from Santa Barbara. I saw him at this garbage show. I think he might have, whatever. So shout out to Bruce St. James. He got me my job at Power 106.
Crazy.
So then I became the music director at Power 106.
So you were the MD. Who was the PD? Jimmy Steele?
No, Michelle Mercer.
Michelle Mercer.
Rick
okay.
Cummings had just left.
Okay.
And Michelle Mercer was the PD.
What's it like? Because I feel like people don't really grasp, like, radio obviously nowadays is a whole different ballgame. But in the 90s, like, doing hip-hop radio at Power 106, like, that had to be, like, just the politics you had to deal with.
Dude, when I walked in the first time, the first people that I met was like Chalk and C minus.
Shout out to fucking
almighty
Mr. Chalk.
Freaking Roughnecks.
Yeah.
The Baker Boys. You know what I mean? Shout out Nick and Eric. I mean, because these were the guys that like, I used to be that kid that would drive up just far enough to listen to K-Day AM.
Right.
And Julio G. Shout out Tony G. and the original Mixmasters.
Right.
That was what I would do. You know what I mean? I was such a fan of it. You know? And then when Michelle and even The Beat and Eazy-E and Julio and Rest in Peace Eazy-E and West Side Radio and, just all of that stuff and those icons, that's what I grew up on.
So you're the music director for how long?
The format of the station when we first started wasn't hip hop.
It was just CHR Rhythmic hybrid.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was doing this. It was Yeah, CHR kind of, but it was like Artie the One Man Party, then Boyz II Men and Mobb Deep, and it was kind of all over the place.
Right.
And I was like, we need to go straight West Coast gangster rap.
Right.
That's what we need to do. And they told me, you're fucking crazy. You know what I mean? I was like, dude, I want to put Ain't No Fun in Morning Drive.
Right.
And they were like, dude, what about All About You? What about Life Goes On? What about, all of these records that I knew were huge in the street? Because you have to remember, I started off as a DJ. I started off, my first job at KHCY in Santa Barbara after being an intern was the night jock. So I'm going to high school, you know what I mean, as the night jock programming my own show.
Crazy.
So I knew what the streets were listening. Plus, all of my friends, growing up in Santa Barbara, yeah, I'm white, but, it was basically identifying as young Mexican. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, that was all my friends. So growing up, the first tape I heard, that blew my mind was Gangsta Gangster. You know what I mean? And Eazy-E. So I stole that tape. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what my friends were listening to. So when I got to Power, that was my mission.
Right.
Was like, we're going to make West Coast rap the #1 format in the world. And they said, that just won't happen.
So this is around the time of
97.
So 97. So this is Pac and Biggie passed.
No.
By now?
Okay, so when I'm in Santa Barbara,
Because obviously Biggie died in March of 97?
Biggie was sitting in my office the morning before he died.
What?
He had done a radio run and he literally...
Because we always see like that legendary cameo stop he had.
Yeah.
So then he was in L.A.
Yeah. So he went to the Baker Boys show, and he was on crutches because, he'd gotten that car accident with C's.
Yeah.
And what happened is he did the beat and he played Bone Thugs and Harmony, and I heard it the night before. And I flipped.
Notorious Thugs?
Yeah. And I flipped, and I called Puffy, and I was like, bro, homie, one, Bone Thugs and Harmony is a Power 106 artist.
For sure.
And two, we got the Baker Boys. So what are you doing? And he goes, we'll be there tomorrow morning, miss. And that was that. You know what I mean? So he came on and he played like Hypnotized, Notorious Thugs, Kicking the Door.
He's just breaking
you know what I mean?
records.
He was just playing all of them. So, I mean, it was like crazy. And then he comes down the thing and he's on his crutches and he looks in the thing. And this is the second time I met him because we had a show at the Palace in Hollywood the night before. And I don't think, Snoop doesn't get enough credit for trying to kill the East-West beef. I mean, literally the night that we had this show at the Palace, Biggie's on stage in the middle of all of this stuff. He just got booed at the Source Awards. I had the Dog Pound on stage, and I'm like, yo, you guys stop by. And they're like, I don't know, it's a little hot. And I'm like, dude, I got this. Just come. Biggie gets out of the car. Puffy, Mace, all of them get out of the car. And they come out, and I'm like, this is Snoop, this is da-da-da. And I start realizing, like, by just introducing everybody, and everybody's going to be cool. We had Ice Cube there. We have all these people there. So I'm introducing everybody. Everybody's cool. Biggie goes out on stage. I go to E-Man. Hey, E. Big's on stage. He's like, dude, I didn't bring any records. I didn't think he was going to show. So he just plays Crush on You. And Big does what he wrote for Lil' Kim. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. And Snoop comes out in the back and just starts dancing. And I'm like, East-West beef, what?
This is in the middle of the beef.
In the middle of all of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I had met Pac before that. And, when I was doing alternative, they had... They'd have these after the Grammys, they have those parties and stuff like that. Well, MCA had one at the Four Seasons. It's a famous one where Pac was in the Versace with Kiss and all that. And afterwards, they came to the Four Seasons. Well, Suge Knight and Pac and everybody comes running in. Everybody hits the walls. But I'm like, fuck, that's Pac and Suge. Yeah. So I just walk up and I'm like, hey, Pac, nice to meet you. Suge. He's like, nice to meet you. He said, I love the new album. And it goes from this happy to... The album doesn't come out till Monday. How the hell did you get it? And I was like, what? And he goes, how did you get my album? Suge. Somebody got the album before release.
Well, then you had to explain. I'm a radio guy. The label sent me the advance.
So I go, I'm like, I'm an alternative radio, so they know we're not going to play it. They sent it to me on the Friday before the release date. Yeah. And Suge goes, ah, ha, 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 and just turns around, and Pac goes, what's your favorite song? And I go, oh, song one, this two, a million pair of eyes looking hard. And he
Right.
finishes
You can't
the
see me,
sentence
yeah.
with me and slaps my hand and goes, did you meet Snoop? Did you meet so-and-so? You met Nate? You met da-da-da-da? MC Hammer? I was like, MC Hammer with you guys?
Yeah, he was, I
You know what
forgot.
I mean?
He was
Like,
rolling
what
with
the
Death
hell's
Row,
going
yeah.
on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like hip-hop fan overload. You know what I mean? Like,
No, but it's interesting. I'm going to go back to the show. That like, imagine if Instagram existed then,
Oh,
and you would see Snoop
we'll
doing
get
his
to
Snoop
that.
dance on stage with Biggie.
yeah. But that was a moment.
That's a moment.
So while Snoop's there, I say,
I'm assuming that this show transpired after Pac died.
yes.
Yes.
Yes. This is probably around February or March 97.
Right. So this is okay.
No, it was March 6th, 5th.
Right.
97. So it was just a couple days.
4 days before, 3-4 days before he
Big
passed.
was gone.
Damn.
So he was doing that radio run or whatever, and he came in and he just sat down, and then Nick and Eric come in and go, we need him to record a freestyle. And I was like, oh, and he's like, oh man, my legs, damn, can I just sit here for a little while? And Nick and Eric go, look, why don't you record it when he feels like it, and whatever. So Big's sitting there, he looks over and he just says, God, I love being in California. And I'm like, what? And he goes, the women, the weed. He goes, man, I'm going home soon. I just got good with Faith again. I'm going to go see my daughter. You know, man, I love it. And we just sat there and we talked for like 30 minutes just about all this. And he's like, all right, man, let's go do this, Dame. And I was like, all right, cool. So we go in there and I go, do you need a piece of paper? And he goes, nah, I write everything in my head.
Right.
And I was like, what? And he goes, I'll just do the verse from Victory. He goes, Puff album coming out. I wrote some stuff. I'll just do the verse from Victory. And I was like, all right, cool. So I'm sitting there, and he goes in the booth. He's like, yeah, 1, 2, 1, 2. Put the headphones on. I'm watching this Icon rap, and I'm just going like, yo. And he's like, so what you think of that? And I'm just like, oh, yeah, great. You know, it's like, he goes, you need me to run it again? Da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, cool. He's like, nah, cool. Left and whatever. So E1, the next night, I was going to the Outkast party because Outkast had just gone platinum or whatever it was with AT Aliens or something.
Probably AT Aliens.
Or Aquemini or whatever. And,
Yeah. AT Aliens.
whatever. So they love those guys. And shout out Gip Goody.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I go home and go to bed because they didn't let me into the Roxbury because I had tennis shoes on and blue jeans.
Right.
And I didn't even know about the Quincy Jones party. You know what I mean? The Peterson Auto Museum party. I was just like, well, I knew, but I was like, look, if they're not going to let me into this, I'm sure as hell not going to get into that. So I just went home and went to sleep. And about 12:30, E1 calls me up. Shout out E1, Mad Pro and Nerve and all of them. He calls me up and he goes, they got big. I was like, what? And he goes, they got big. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I hear Puffy wailing in the background. He goes, I'm at the hospital. Puffy's on the phone with Biggie's mother right now telling him that. And I was like, wait, don't tell me. And he goes, Big is dead. And I was like, what just happened? The dude was just like...
In your office, yeah.
And that was like... You know, meeting Pac and then Pac dying and then seeing Big and then Big dying, it was like, what's going on? Like,
right.
Wow. And that was kind of how my introduction to what was happening in the street and Death Row and Suge Knight.
So I got to ask you because...
There's a lot.
There's a lot. Well, I'm curious because you would always hear that, like, you know, the magazines or radio hosts were adding gasoline to the beef.
Hell yeah, they were.
But you always would hear about, like, it on the Hot 97 side. I never really heard of, like, the Baker Boys or anybody, like, stirring up the East Coast, West Coast beef. What was, like, the temperature like after Pac dies? You're obviously in there. Biggie's thriving. He's about to put out, you know, Life After Death. And what was the temperature like being at the radio station? It's the hip hop station, quote unquote, in LA during that. Like,
I'll tell you why that started. I'll tell you why that started on the radio side. It's because Power 106 was breaking all these East Coast artists, and the artists were going back to Hot 97 saying, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? Like, Biggie was broken in Los Angeles. Puffy was broken in Los Angeles. Mace was broken in Los Angeles. Big Pun was, rest in peace, was broken in Los Angeles. I mean, you have to remember, Steve Rifkin comes in my office, puts in a tape of the video of I'm Not a Player by Big Pun.
Right.
And I go, oh, that's dope. Hold on a second. And I pop the VHS tape out. I walk in the production room and take it from the VHS tape and put it on a CD. I walk on in the air and I hand it to them and say, play this next. I come back in, hand him his videotape, and he's like, what did you just do? And I'm like, oh, nothing, just chilling. That song ends, all of a sudden, Not a Player comes on. And Steve's like, well, are you playing that on the radio? And I'm like, yeah, dope song. He goes, dude, we don't even have a CD pressed yet. Hot 97, I haven't even played it for Hot yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what do you think?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, like what Josh said, and I love Ja and Irv, and why I love them so much is even when my own coast forgot about me, no matter what, Ja and Irv would always, no matter what they were doing, any other, Breakfast Club or Drink Champs or anything, they'd be like, I got broken on the West Coast. You know what I mean? Like, New York wasn't messing with me. Brought Holla Holla and Can I Get Her and all of that stuff to thank you, Damien.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Jay-Z and all of them.
Because Holla Holla was like his first like solo.
Well, no.
Itch.
How many
like,
one it was?
Oh, I mean, I'm talking about like actual hit that like kind of like, broke through as like a.
But we tried with Holla Holla first.
Right.
Because you have to remember, Irv produced Hotspot for Foxy Brown. Mm-hmm. Then he did Can I Get Her? So Jay Brown brought me Dame Dash and Jay-Z. And we tried like 5 singles on Jay-Z before
something caught.
Before Hard Knock Life. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it got to the point where Def Jam was talking about not renewing his budget, and
Well, yeah, because like Volume 1 was like, but there was a lot of records and big videos that got shot. Like,
dude, Sunshine, City
Is Mine, and
I mean, Who You With,
and none of those like really hit.
None of
for
them.
real.
We tried on the radio, every single one of them. It didn't work.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So there was a lot of that, but
and those were the days that like you went into the studio because you were making a radio record.
Yeah, and
the money that you put into that radio record and the video, it was substantial.
Well,
so the investment probably had to be so crazy.
Oh, and they literally said we're not going to renew his budget.
Yeah,
but then Irv pops up with a soundtrack record. Can I Get Her?
On Nutty Professor.
Yeah. I think, I don't remember, but Brett Ratner was also managing.
No. Can I Get Her? Ain't No was I don't remember. Ain't No was on Nutty Professor.
Have Plenty.
Yeah.
I think it was Have Plenty soundtrack.
Yeah. Ain't No was on Nutty Professor. Which was before Volume 1.
Which I think was Quest, which was Jay Brown.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Jay Brown keeps asking me to keep investing in this artist because he really believes in him, and it's Jay-Z. So he comes with Can I Get Her? Can I Get Her does great for radio.
Yeah.
Another record broke on the West Coast.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, through meeting Irv. You know what I'm saying? Then Jermaine comes along and does Money Ain't a Thing and all of these records and, all of that kind of stuff. And Jay builds brand, all of this kind of stuff, does Hard Knock Life. Steve Smith comes in to me because now Michelle Mercer's gone. It's just me. And he goes, wait a minute, you're that 12-year-old kid that I helped in Santa Barbara. And Michael and I still have a consultancy. I'm still running Hot 97.
Yeah.
I got 32 stations in the middle. Tell you what, you're doing all this crazy promotions and Hawaii stuff and all this crazy stuff. He goes, I'll tell you what, work with Michael on the consultancy. I'll give you Power 106. You do whatever you want with Power 106, and I'll work on Hot 97. Just help me with the consultancy with Michael. So I would literally do the conference calls for the 32 stations with them and Steve and Michael and all this kind of stuff. So Steve on the conference call says, Jay-Z's Hard Knock Life is not getting any research. Pull it across the country. And I can't say anything, outshine the master on the, on the call and say, wait a minute, Steve, because, I'm not going to ever disrespect my boss. You know what I mean? Like, so after the call, I go running into his office and say, yo, it's number 15 in Los Angeles. We're starting to get call out, and we're 2 weeks ahead of New York.
Right.
So give it a second, bro. So literally made him get on with every single program director.
And say, hold off.
And say, hold off, give it 2 more weeks.
Right.
That Hard Knock Life record, give it 2 more weeks. And that shit popped. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then I start seeing all this, and I'm like, at the time I had met Mariah Carey, and there was all that crap going on. So I'm like, you know what?
What's all that crap going on?
Well, she was coming off of Sony.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And, Tommy Mottola was her husband. Mm-hmm. And, when you're a star of that stature and you're also going to be a free agent in a record, and, okay, so let me rewind. So Mariah Carey goes to release Honey, right? And it wasn't a Power 106 record. We're a rap station now. I'd successfully, like, for instance, the Ain't No Fun stuff.
Until the remix comes.
Well, okay, so what had happened was, Ain't No Fun and stuff like that. They told me if I put those in our research and stuff like that, the auditorium testing, which is how radio stations decide what they're going to play as the recurrents and the gold records and the oldies and all of that. They said if I put Ain't No Fun in those records, they just fire me. You know what I mean? Because they were never going to play Ain't No Fun in those kind of records anymore.
Which is crazy because it's fucking, by 97, that's a classic.
But not on the radio. They were never radio records.
Crazy.
So you got to remember, radio, the way that it was driven back then, is if it was not played as a radio or sent out as a single, then a radio station would not play it. Do you know what I mean? You weren't playing just cuts because you wanted to.
Right. Like, I like track 7.
Nah.
Right.
But that's what made me famous in Santa Barbara.
Was that you were pulling... the
because
imports.
alternative was such a young format that we had a huge gold base of David Bowie and all these kind of things, but we didn't have many new records.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if something like Nirvana came out, I'd take 4 cuts off the album, play them as currents, and then slowly, you know what I mean, run through them and literally decide the singles basically for the labels. You know what I mean? And that's what I did with Power. Is I took album-orientated rock and said, let's make it album-orientated rap. Right. But let's put a gangster twist on it. That's crazy. So that show with Biggie, I asked Snoop to come do weekends on Power 106.
Because Snoop had his radio show. What was it called? I remember it was on in Phoenix for a little bit.
Well, this is before that.
Oh, before that.
Yeah, this is before all of that. So Fuzzy wanted to do a show called Curb Serving.
Okay.
Shout out Fuzzy.
Shout out to Fuzz, man. Connector.
Which connected us to Snoop Dogg.
Right.
Because if it wasn't for Fuzzy introducing Snoop Dogg and bringing him to that show at the Palace, then none of it would have happened.
Crazy.
Do you know
Shout
what
out
I'm
to
saying?
Fuzzy, man. Fuzzy's a legend. I just was with him a couple weeks ago. He brought the dog pound up here.
Yeah, I love Fuzzy.
Yeah.
And so Fuzzy had this idea for Curb Serving, and everybody was like, that West Coast gangster rap shit. I was like, well, what about right after Friday Night Flavors,
Right.
So it's like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night, give them the shot and see what happens.
Right.
But we would get all of this exclusive content out of those shows, Friday Night Flavors and, Curb Serving. We would get like midnight. He'd bring me Midnight Love, that had Snoop and Raphael Sadiq and, all of this kind of stuff. And I'd play them as currents. You know what I mean? They'd bring them to me and I'd be like, oh, let's play that as a current. So Snoop starts hearing this stuff, like, what are these guys doing? So I was like, yo, want to meet, come work for us. And we put him on Saturdays. I saw him at that show and I said, what's going on? He's like, I just got off death row. They cut off my stipend.
Yeah, because that was kind of like right
rough
before
time.
the No Limit shit happened.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, well, why don't you come to work for us at Power 106? You can play your...
What was like? What is the paycheck for Snoop Dogg to do a radio show in '97?
$50 an hour.
$50 an hour.
I mean, he literally came and filled out the application and did it. But it was $50 an hour, and it wasn't.
And this was a 2-hour specialty show, or was it longer?
There was, I think, 2 to 4,
2 to 4,
whatever it was. But
and who was programming the music? Was it Snoop or was it you?
He was.
It Fuzzy?
He could do whatever he wanted.
So would he submit the songs?
And Jeff Garcia and the Flavor Unit Jr.
Shout out to Jeff. Yeah. So who was editing the songs that Snoop would bring in?
Jeff Garcia.
So Jeff was
I love Jeff. Jeff's my guy.
great.
So we thought who would be the best producer for Snoop's show. The first time we heard it, we're like, we need to have Jeff Garcia do this because Jeff
Jeff's
is
the best
literally
producer
the
in the
best
game.
producer in.
Period.
It's
Yeah.
bar none.
Yes.
who then became our production director. But
If Cruz and him ever break up, I'm taking Jeff.
and I love Cruz.
I love Jeff, man.
But Jeff is
the GOAT.
Well, but he made that show work. You know what I'm saying? And so Snoop's in there. A funny story. So Snoop's in there working one day, and I walk in, and I'm like, "So, what's up with you and Dre? You know, what's going on?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I just ain't talked to him and da-da-da-da-da and all this kind of stuff." And I'm like, "Okay." So Master P had been coming by the station like every morning, you know, trying to get No Limit Records on Power 106. And he says to me, he's like, "Hey, Snoop's doing weekends?" And I say, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, what's he doing?"
Right.
And I'm like, I don't, you know, whatever. He goes, "I heard this song. I heard that song." You know, da-da-da-da-da. So I guess Snoop runs into Mystical or something like that. And then, you know, Master P says, "Wait, let me get the hotline number." No, let me get the hotline number so I can call the DJs and da-da-da-da-da. And I want to talk to Snoop. And
Now, when you say the hotline number, are you talking about like the number
the back
the back
PD
door?
line,
Yeah, the
you know?
PD, the hotline.
Because you know
yeah.
what's so crazy about
there's a
Master
hotline,
P?
there's the warm line, and then there's
Let me tell you about Master P. Master P, when he wants something, like he would show up literally every morning to Power 106. Like when I got to work, he'd be in the lobby. "Dame, I got this record. What about this one?" "Dame, he'd go to the studio, come back. "Dame, I got this record. What about it?" Like his goal was to get a record on Power 106. It got to the point where I would not come through the lobby. I started
Because
going through the back door.
We're trying to avoid Master P.
Because I was trying to avoid Master. No, but this is how crazy Master P is in a good way. He figured it out. He'd wait at the back door.
Crazy.
So I would be coming in through the back door.
Did you guys play Make Him Say, huh?
That's what did it. Nick and Eric from the Baker Boys were championing so hard. Master P finally brought me Make Him Say, But every morning he'd sit there, show me how the research works. Why do you make these decisions? How do you make the decisions? Always the nicest guy. You know what I mean? And I had met P originally through a guy named Mark Benish, rest in peace, at Priority. You know, way back in the day. You know what I mean? When they first did the first deal with Independent and, you know, doing it that way. And Brian Shafton.
Shout out to Brian.
Yeah, Brian, my guy. I mean, I literally just got off the phone with him. Brian was their finance
Shout
guy.
out to Dave, too, man. Dave Weiner.
Yeah, well, and man, all of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Justin. But he was their finance guy.
Right.
So I'd run into him in the hallway and stuff, you know? So anyways, and all this plays into a bigger story later. But anyways, yeah, Pete would do that. Snoop was doing that. And then Nino Cuccinello calls me up and says, "Hey, Dr. Dre's shooting a video, Zoom Zoom with LL Cool J."
I remember that record.
You know?
What soundtrack was that? Was that Bullworth?
Whatever.
That was the Bullworth soundtrack.
I think.
With, it was Bullworth with Halle Berry, with her fine ass. Young Halle Berry was in that.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. That was a great soundtrack. Bullworth had that. I had the Ghetto Superstar, Praz, and
Oh, yeah, we played those too. But,
Yeah.
but to me, it was about, I'm trying to get Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg
back together.
Some way, some shape, whether it's coming on his show. I mean, this was my master plan because I am a Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg fan. Like,
Right.
I just wanted to see the show. Like, if I could get these two in the same room and get a picture, then my life could end.
Right.
If I meet DJ Quick, shout out DJ Quick, and I meet Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and get a picture with all three, then I'm cool.
Right.
You know, I can end my career right there and I'm straight. So they go coming, you know, whatever. So Dr. Dre's shooting Zoom Zoom, and he goes, "This is Damien." And I said, "Zoom Zoom?" I said, "What the fuck is this?" And Dre looks over at me and he's like, "What?" And I go, "Where's the one with Snoop Dogg on it that you leaked to the Compton and Slauson swap meet?" And he's like, "What?" And I said, "This had Snoop on it, was released to the Compton, and how do you know that?" I said, "Dude, I'm a rap fan."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Whoa." So we just started talking about rap music. And I knew everything that this guy did, going to the DOC. Shout out DOC, by the way. And I I mean, that's what started me on rap was Gangsta Gangster. So I knew everything this guy did, going back to the World Class Wrecking Crew and all that kind of stuff. So I started asking those questions. I said, yo, let's swap. And when I said, yo, let's swap numbers, I caught myself and just went, oh shit, you just asked Dr. Dre for his number.
Right.
Like whatever. So I was walking around the station, and a funny story about that. As he said, and I said, yo, what assistant is this to? And he goes, this is my headphone. It rings next to my head, so don't call too early. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, wow, he gave me, whatever. So he had just had the aftermath and the firm thing, and him and Jimmy weren't talking, none of that kind of stuff. So I was like, I need an excuse to call Dr. Dre. So I went back in the studio and I said, hey, Snoop, I heard Dr. Dre wants to work with you again. And Snoop looks at me and says, yeah, I put that fool back on. And I was like, okay. And so I'm like, how am I going to do this? And I go and I call Dre and I'm like, hey, what's going on? You know, Damien from Power 106, da-da-da-da-da. Hey, you know, it's kind of crazy. I was talking to Snoop yesterday. He said he wanted to work with you again. And he said the exact same thing. I put that fool back on. You know what I like? And that's how it happened. You know, and then it was crazy because he's like, hey, you on No Limit or something like that and this kind of stuff. I said, well, we have a Powerhouse coming up and Snoop is playing at the Powerhouse. Why don't you come to the Powerhouse and just be my guest? And he's like, think about it. So I'm like talking to his wife, you know, when she answers the phone before he gives it to Dre. Hey, man, I'm really trying to get him to come to the show. You should come to the show, blah, 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 blah. This is what I'm trying to do. And, you know, she was great. She was like, oh, he needs that, you know, da-da-da-da-da, all this. He needs to get out, do this stuff. And, you know, and it was, you know, I mean, they both were in that phase, you know what I mean, in between, you know, and the death row thing. And they just had not seen each other since it, but there was no bad beef.
Right.
So what happened is Snoop comes in and I set up his dressing room, and shout out to Diana Obermeyer, genius lady promotion. Like she puts the name Snoop Dogg on the dressing room door, and I said, yo, I need a dressing room right next door for Dr. Dre. So as soon as Snoop walks in, I switched the Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg nameplates. And Dre comes in. He's got 2 bottles of Tanqueray. Damn, I'm here, you know, whatever. And I'm like, there's your dressing room. I opened up the door and literally just went like that. And Daz, Corrupt, Snoop, Dre! You know, like, and they all started talking.
So that was the first time they had seen each other since
Death Row.
The Death Row shit.
Yeah. So I'm over there conspiring with DJ Jam, you know, who I love. DJ Jam, my dog. Jam. And I'm like, Jam, we got to find a way to get him to do a song on stage. It's Powerhouse. You know, if Dre go out there and do deep cover and nothing but a G thing, we got to rip the head off this thing. Like, come on, bro, let's do this. And Jam's like, damn, they started the conversation, but it just don't work like that. Just chill out, guys. Chill out. It'll happen, but chill out. Yeah. And I'm like, nah, I'm going to make this happen. Fuck that. You know, like, you know, all this stuff. So Dre's sitting on the side of the stage on a road case. Snoop is out there performing. And I walk over to Jam. I'm like, just play deep cover, play deep cover. And he's like, damn, the conversation started, but I'm not going to do that. I'm like, fuck this. And I walk over and I grab 2 mics from the guy and I hold them in front of Dre and I go, Dre, do it. Like, fucking do it. Look at this. Like, if you walk out there right now, do you realize what's going to happen? He goes, all right, fuck this. And he grabs the 2 mics out of my hand. And I look at Jam and I'm like, he's got the mics. And Jam's just like, fuck it. Puts it on, fucking Dre comes out. What up, Snoop? Surprised as fuck. Just
Snoop's like, what the fuck's going on?
Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, hell yeah. And they did it. So Dre walks up to me right after and he hands me back the mics. He goes, that what you wanted, motherfucker? I said, no, I want an album. And he goes, don't push your luck. Like, you know, whatever. He's like, I'm out of here. And he fucking took off. But that started the relationship with Dr. Dre. Right. So then Nino calls me again. He goes, you need to come to office. You need to come to office. I'm like, all right, cool. So I go to Interscope because Nino and I are really good friends, man. So you need to come to the office. We're going up to Jimmy Iovine's office. So I'm like, oh God, here we go. You know, something like that. I forgot one little thing. So when after that performance, I said we need to do a show. Like we need it to be just Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. Right. And he's like, well, you know, where are we going to do it? We can't do it in L.A. No venue will ensure that. No venue will take a West Coast gangster rap show like that. You're never going to get Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre in a venue in LA.
Right.
And we don't have a current single,
Right.
da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, well, you can make an album, da-da-da-da. So, Dre sneaks over and starts making a song with the Master P thing, all this kind of thing. And I'm like,
this is probably No Limit Top Dog era? The second No Limit album?
I think.
Because the first No Limit album, Dre wasn't on.
Yeah, well, it was, like, they were talking about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and he started recording.
Because Bitch Please 2 was on
Well,
Top Dog. I'm trying to remember
Bitch
that first Snoop Dogg album on No Limit, I was not a fan.
Yeah, but it was kind of like the conversation was starting. So,
that's good.
Maybe there was some sessions, maybe there wasn't.
And then the road to 2001 happens.
Well, yeah. So then it was, let's do a show.
Right.
Like, let's get this together. And Dre is like, all right, I'll fucking do it.
Right.
And I'm like, Snoop, what do you think? He's like, all right, I'll fucking do it. And then and then we go around, we can't get nobody to do it. So
Like not a venue.
Right. So I'm like, just hang out. We're gonna do this Puffy in Paradise show in Hawaii. If the Baker Boys came up with that idea, if we do it in Hawaii, then maybe we can fly the winners to Hawaii like we did with this, and then we can skate past the whole venue thing and just do it in Hawaii. So then they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. Well, when Dre cut the promos, Snoop cuts the promos, I go on the air with it, Jimmy Iovine calls me. And he's like, bro, what are you doing? And I'm like, Jimmy Iovine? Hi? Like, you're Jimmy Iovine?
Yeah.
And he goes, I have a bill on my desk for $250,000. Thank you, Nino. For a promotion in Hawaii that I'm hearing on the radio that has a producer that doesn't produce and an artist that I haven't seen since Death Row. And how the fuck did you get Dr. Dre's number? I don't even have it. Like, I'm trying to sell this label, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Like, and I mean, the rumor was that he was going to sell Aftermath because of After the Firm and
the Aftermath album.
And the Aftermath album. So it was kind of like, and I was like, look, bro, you'll get your album. Yeah, trust me. Like, you're going to get it. I've been to the studio. I know he's working on something. It was the early stages of Mailman and all of that kind of stuff. And just trust me, you're going to get it. And he goes, well, if this doesn't happen, I'm going to sue you for the $250,000. But go ahead and do it. And then I get a call from Dre saying, you need to come to the house. And I was like, what? And we're in the middle of all this, it's all happening.
Promotion's already on the air.
And he goes, you need to come to the house. And I'm like, I know where you live. You think I'm a fucking stalker? Like, whatever. So I end up coming to the house. I walk in, and there's this little white kid in the booth going, Slim Shady, you a basshead. Why your face red? And I was like, oh, wait a minute. He's writing for you? And he goes, let me talk to you outside for a second. And I'm like, what? And he goes, let me talk to you outside for a second. I'm like, oh, no. You signed the white boy? And he goes, how do I break the white kid? And I was like, haven't you ever heard of Vanilla Ice? And he goes, bro, how do I break the white kid? And I was like, all right, I'll tell you what. You tell me the story of NWA from beginning to end, and I want to know everything from the World Class Wrecking Crew, Lonzo, what the room was like when Eazy-E did freaking Boys in the Hood, when Cube wrote it, who wrote this, who did that, what happened with DOC, blah, 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 blah. He goes, dude, you got all night? I was like, yeah, I do. And he's like, all right. So I sat on his washer and dryer. He sat on his stairs, and he proceeded to tell me the entire story of NWA from World Class Wrecking Crew and Warren and the House and Jinx and everything up until that point. About 6 o'clock in the morning, M comes out and goes, look, guys, I'm going home. I've been sitting here for hours. Y'all been telling these stories. I'm out of here. I said, no, you're going to the Baker Boys show, and you're going to announce that you're doing the Friday Night Flavors 10-year anniversary. And we're going to break that record. He goes, the record's not ready yet. So we'll at least go do the show, set it up, and we'll talk about this later when you have the record.
Yeah.
And he was like, cool. So then we added M to the show in Hawaii.
Crazy.
So then M cut all the drops, and we added M to it, dropped Hi, My Name Is.
So this was before Hi, My Name Is. You already added him to the show.
Right. So, well, we did it right as we dropped Hi, My Name Is, because you really have to remember MTV, for all intents and purposes, broke Eminem.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So, and I remember this one story. M came in my office. M called me up. And
shout out to Sway and Tech who had him on.
Oh, no, the early...
had him on,
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Sway and Tech and the Wake Up Show, all of that. But I'm saying Hi, My Name Is was broken.
Hi, My Name Is.
You know what I'm saying? As far as that goes.
Which made us know who he is.
Yeah, so shout out Sway and Tech. No disrespect. Right. I love those guys. But they're getting ready to drop Hi, My Name Is. And, M used to call me a lot like, what's this mean? What's that mean? Come to the studio and listen to this. Or, Dre, all of them did. So M calls me up. He goes, yo, can I stop by the office? I was like, yeah. I was like, fuck's going on? And shows up, he's like, yo, what's a buzz clip? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, what's a buzz clip? Everybody's so excited at the office, they're all saying congratulations and shit, and that mean? I said, oh, dude, that's hot rotation at MTV. You're about to become a mega star. So if you want to go take your daughter to Taco Bell or McDonald's or whatever the hell you want to do right now, do it now, because tomorrow morning you're not going to be able to go anywhere. And he's like, and he had this half look of like, wow, I made it. And half kind of like, wait a minute, what is that? Wait, I can't go out in public anymore?
Right.
Like, wait. And then he was like, yeah, cool. And he leaves, right? The next morning, M was everywhere. And I get the record. Hot 97 or MTV, just national. You know what I mean? So we broke it at the same time that they broke it on MTV. They literally did it at the same time. So then we had him do the drops. I called him back. I said, get back over here. We'll add him to the show, do the drops. And that was the Chronic 2001 tour. So when they got done with the Hawaii show.
Crazy.
Well, but check this out. So and this is how synergy works. Okay? This is why I always say consistency and repetition breeds familiarity. Familiarity breeds a relationship breeds teamwork, or synergy, and synergy, teamwork wins games. So we add him to the show, right? Then Dre, after the show, calls me up and says, we want to take this on the road, but no venue will take us across the country.
So Hawaii was kind of the
test run.
The test run of what ended up being the Up in Smoke tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I remember I've worked so hard as like a 12-year-old kid or however old I was to get the money to go to the warehouse and buy those tickets.
Yeah.
And it sucks because the date I went to in Phoenix, Ice Cube wasn't on the tour. He wasn't on but that shit was crazy.
Dude, it was fucking. Dude, imagine but watch this. Imagine in Hawaii, it's 250 people. Okay?
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. In a hotel ballroom.
So 250 people got to see Eminem, Dre, and Snoop in Hawaii.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Exclusive content for Power 106.
That's crazy.
And the reunion. And you've got M blowing up with Hi, My Name Is at that time.
Crazy.
Then they record Still DRE. Okay? Now, here's the funny thing about that. So Dre called me one night. He's like, yo, I think I got the record. And I was like, what? And he goes, you need to come to the studio. I got the record. And I was like, and keep in mind, during the recording process, Jay-Z wrote a song called Malibu Dre first. Okay? Didn't come out right. So Dre's like, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean?
For people who don't know, Jay-Z wrote Dre's.
Well, we'll get. It's getting there. so we're at A&M. He calls me to A&M. It's Scott Storch's first night, and he's sitting in the back. It's Mel Man. I think Doc was there. Some other people, and you hear him in the back just going bling 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 bling, and the drum beat is playing, but I'm sitting there just going like, what the hell is going on? And he goes, well, Jay-Z's supposed to write a song. I don't know about the you remember the Malibu Dre? Malibu Dre was all right. Da 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 da. Well, we're gonna give him another shot. You know Jay. Because I had just broken Jay. You know what I mean? So he was like, "Is this the beat?" And I was like, "Oh hell yeah, that's the beat." And he goes, "Me and Snoop," and I'm like, "Oh hell yeah, that's the beat." He goes, "You can tee off on this?" I'm like, "That's the beat." And he's like, "Okay, send it off." 2 days later, he calls me up. He goes, you need to come back by the studio. I'm like, what? He goes, I think we got it. And I was like, what? And he goes, Still DRE. And I was like, what's Still DRE? He goes, the fucking single. We got it. And I was like, oh, I'm on my way. So we go to record one, or encore, one of the two. I walk in, I hear that record, and I said, thank you. And I literally took it out of his hand. He's like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go play it. And he's like, okay. And that I just put it on the radio.
I would love to hear the Jay-Z reference track to Still DRE.
I've heard it.
That'd be crazy.
It's hilarious to hear Jay doing it in Dre's voice.
Right.
You know, which is also kind of funny to hear M doing like, to a new house on a new hill. And how would you feel if, you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, those references.
No, that's great.
You know what I mean? Like M wrote, what's the difference between me and you? You know, like all of those kind of, all that stuff. He wrote all that stuff for Dre. I mean, think how genius Eminem is. You know what I mean? Bitch Please Part 2, he wrote the whole fucking record. You know what I mean? Snoop's parts and his, I think. You know what I mean? He wrote the whole, I know he wrote Nate's parts, and Nate told me. You know what I mean? Like,
that's crazy.
And even Till I Collapse, he wrote that for Nate. And Nate just came in and sang it. Oh, I'm doing my session work now. I'm like, what? I'm going over to see him. I'm going to go do my session work.
Shout out to Nate, dog, man. Rest in peace, man. The GOAT.
One of my best friends ever, and I loved him.
Yeah, he was great, man.
But yeah, so that's how it all started. And then I started playing. Literally, that's when I realized how much power we had. Because I took Still DRE, handed it to Steve Smith, and they played it on Hot 97 in New York. But it was like just hit him over the head with it. But then Power 105 came on. This is a little bit later. Power 105 came on in New York, and Jay-Z immediately went over there because, you know, people weren't fucking with Hot 97 like that. They weren't breaking their records and were threatening to take records off. And they just had the Little Kim shooting and all this kind of stuff. So I get a call, and it's like, yo, you need to go to Hot 97 and fix all this shit. And I was like, what? And they go, Summer Jam's not booked. Right. Flex won't sign his contract. Jay-Z's on this new station called Power 105 saying, fuck Hot 97. And they don't have a music director. And if you're going to New York. And so I went to New York and cleaned up the Little Kim stuff, finished booking Summer Jam, pulled Jay-Z off of Hot 97, and got Flex to sign his contract.
For people who don't know, Power 106 and Hot 97 were owned by the same company for a long time called MS Communications.
But Steve was the consultant behind both of them.
Right.
Now, what's even crazier is, so when Dre called me about the test run, 2001, keep in mind, I was working at Summer Jam. They did Hot 97. I see that Steve Smith owns the company with Brad Patrick and Randy Bazzelli that's doing all the staging. So that's what I used in Hawaii. Do you see what I'm saying? The Summer Jam infrastructure to do the Chronic shit, right? So when Dre said, I want to go on tour, he's like, well, I'll just use the people that we used in Hawaii because that was a great test run. Now, how do I get it across the country? Well, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, Jay Brown, who manages Jay-Z, his wife works for Magic Johnson. So I'm like, well, why don't we get Magic Johnson to be the promoter? And then he'll open up all the venues for us because he's fucking Magic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's like, good idea. Can you make it happen? And I was like, yeah. Jay Brown, tell Magic Johnson Dr. Dre want to talk to him. And we were on the road.
That's crazy. Hey, it's the Bootleg Kev Show, man. You already know our number one sponsor, our brothers, our folks, our dogs. Day ones, Odd Socks, man. Go to oddsocksofficial.com. Use that promo code Bootleg right now. Get the most comfortable socks in the entire world. Now, this is what's dope about Odd Socks. Not only do they have the most comfortable socks in the world, they also have the most comfortable underwear in the world. That's all I wear. On my ass is Odd Socks. On my feet is Odd Socks. They got all the crazy licenses. Whatever you're into. I mean, fucking Mountain Dew. Man, they just debuted Coca-Cola recently. Power Rangers, Transformers. Man, WWE, whatever you're into, Breaking Bad, they got it. Oddsocksofficial.com, and they're dropping the new slides soon, man. So you can go get the slides, oddsocksofficial.com. Use the promo code Bootleg right now. Save 20% off at checkout, oddsocksofficial.com. Also want to shout out to these guys right here. It's all we're smoking, baby. I'm talking about them King Palms. Oh, my God. Look at all these King Palms. Ooh. Listen. We got so much love for King Palms. I just want to say we're thankful for those guys over there And when I say that, when I started smoking King Palms, I felt like my smoking experience changed so much because King Palm, it's an organic smoke. It's a tasteful smoke. It is just amazing. And what's dope about King Palms is wherever you're at, you could be at, what flavor is that? What's this? You could be, I don't know, pick a city. King Palms are nearby. Hit your local smoke shop, get some. Hit that 7-Eleven, get some. This flavor's crazy. Oh my God. How about Live Life? This is chocolate? What the hell? What in the hell? Anyway, also what's dope about King Palms, if you go to King Palms right now, go to the website, kingpalm.com. Go to kingpalm.com. Use the promo code Bootleg. Save 50% off. They got so much cool shit at kingpalm.com. Not only can you get your leaves, no tobacco, no nicotine, organic flavor, they also got rolling papers. They also got leaves. Like if you're into, like, look, these are the hemp cones right here. The grape swish hemp cones. Look, whatever you're into, 50% off, ladies and gentlemen. Kingpalm.com. Ah! You know what? We're not going to open those. Shout out to King Palm. Let's get back to the interview. I wonder. Tell me, did you ever have any? You know, when you're in radio, or specifically if you're a program director, artists, labels take shit personal. Did you ever have any beef with anybody, or did anyone ever have beef with you when you were at the helms of Power 106?
I wouldn't call it beef. I would say like disagree. Well, okay, I'll tell you a funny story. How I met Busta Rhymes.
Yeah.
Okay. Baker Boy is broadcasting live from MTV Awards or something like that. And Busta's there and you know, he's doing the interview or whatever, and he's doing interviews and goes to Baker Boys, and all of a sudden they're on the air doing the interview, and I hear "fuck Damian Young" live on the air. And I'm like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
So I walk in the studio, I go, what the fuck? And Baker's go talk back, you know, through the
right.
You know, whatever the board or whatever. I don't know what happened with you and Busta Rhymes, but da 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 da. And I'm like, neither do I. Tell him to come back. I want to talk to him.
Right.
And he said he got back and he's there. And I was like, yo, this is Damian Young. And he's like, well, fuck it, da 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 da. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm at 2600 West Olive Avenue in Burbank. Come to the office, and whatever your issue is, let's discuss it in person.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I was like, stop. 2600 West Olive. When you're done, come over, and we will sit down and talk. Shows up to the station, shuts the door. Blah, 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 blah. I was like, wait, what is the issue? And he said, well, the label said, you said my new single, da da. I said, stop. I said, it's like my third, fourth day, bro. I have not heard anything that you have put out. And he goes, oh. I said, do you have the single? He said, yeah. I said, bring it in. Opens the door, tells the rep, give me the single. Okay. Put the single in. I think it was Woo-Ha or Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See something, or the Flip Mode record, or one of those. I put it in and I go, I press eject, take the CD out, hand it to him. He goes, what do you think? I said, well, I think you should stop at the on-air studio on your way out, do an interview, and play that motherfucker.
Yeah.
And he's like, you like it? I said, I fucking love it.
Right.
I said, next time, just fucking call and ask.
That's crazy.
And I never, you know, I never had an artist, I never had an issue with anyone. You know what I mean? Like, I was always, you know, it doesn't matter whether it was the street, it doesn't matter that. I would never take payola. I would never fucking play something that wasn't right for my radio station. I would never compromise. You couldn't intimidate me. You could not, I mean, how many streets?
Did a lot of people try to intimidate you?
Oh, fuck yeah. Because, you know, you have to understand every West Coast gangster rapper is affiliated with a gang. Yeah. So, you know, the first thing that would happen is the intimidation thing. You know what I mean? I'd be like, kick back. Like, you know, dude.
Did Suge Knight ever feel the type of way that you were behind the scenes trying to orchestrate?
I met Suge Knight.
How? Well, obviously, besides the Tupac story.
Well, I met him through the Anaheim Police Department.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So what happened is we had Snoop and all these guys on Powerhouse, right? Suge gets out of jail, and the Anaheim Police Department, Diana, show up in my office, and they're like, we're going to cancel Powerhouse. And I'm like, for what? and they're like, Suge Knight just got out of jail, and there's a rumor that he's going to come to Power 106 and fuck up the show, or the Powerhouse and fuck up the show. I'm like, well, why didn't somebody call him, invite him, at least we'll know where he's at. And where I got that idea is when we were in Hawaii, the Booyah Tribe showed up. You know,
shout out to the Booyah Tribe.
Yeah, so that's how I met them.
Serious guy.
Shout out
to
Gotti,
Carson.
rest in peace.
Yeah.
You know, Red and Godfather, and you know, Giant, one of my best friends. Like, I love Giant. Giant's come and stayed at my house, knew my grandma, came to grandma's funeral. You know what I mean? Like, those guys, I love them. Cobra, right. You know, great guys. Big Gotti, love you, bro. Love you, bro. Who've had my back unconditionally through everything. And I love those guys.
Yeah.
So they show up. Snoop starts coming out, and he's like, will you try downstairs, cut? We're going to go da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, whoa. I said, let me go deal with it. Because I had heard of the Booyah Tribe back when they did a record with EYC on MCA. So I knew they were rappers.
Right.
So I was like, look, at some point, they're going to want the record played. You know, so the best way to do this is for me to go down,
say, hey,
introduce myself, you know, acknowledge and show them respect, and maybe they will do the same. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I go down the thing, and I think it was Giant that was standing right there. And I come down the escalator, and they're arguing with the police department to let them in or whatever it is in Hawaii. And I say, back out, motherfucker, before I knock you out. To the biggest one that I see, you know, just little kid, white kid, thought it would be funny, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yo, I remember when you guys were making records with EYC. I said, you on the Janet Jackson video, you know, Cobra, you know, and That's the Way Love Goes. Like, yeah, what's going on with your music, by the way? And who the fuck are you? I said, I'm Damian Young. And then Godfather comes out through the middle, rest in peace. And he's like, we have heard of you. And I was like, yes. And I said, are you guys ever going to put another record out? And they said, well, yeah, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, well, why don't you guys come in as my guest, and the next time you have a record, you won't have a problem.
Right.
And they're like, come inside as a guest? And I'm like, yeah. So they came in, and I didn't know them yet. You know what I mean? So I was like, to the police department, I'm like,
keep your eyes on them.
You should put security around them because they're famous, and I don't want any fans to fuck with them.
Got it. Smart. Yeah.
So the police put a thing around them, and I go backstage, and Snoop goes, yo, what happened with the Booyah Tribe? And I was like, it's handled. And he was like, what are you talking about? Where are they? And I said, they're in the audience. And he goes, what? And I was like, dog, at least we know where they are. They have, look through the thing. They have police all the way around them. They'll just enjoy the show. I took care of it. And he goes, well, if you sure, da-da-da-da-da, well, I'm going to trust you, cuz, blah, 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 you know, da-da-da-da-da. Went off without a hitch. But from then on, the Booyah Tribe and I were great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, no, I've never had an issue with anyone.
That's interesting.
But, you know, through that, I met everybody. I met Big U. I met, Muggs that ran with Mac 10.
Shout out to Muggs, Inglewood Muggs.
Yeah, Inglewood Muggs was one of my mentors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and, you know, they would make jokes like, oh, little white boy, you won't come to the hood, and, you know, da-da-da-da. So I'm like, yeah, let's go. So Muggs one time, we go over to see Gotti, you know, at the shop, and then we're standing on Muggs's porch. I had just met Muggs's mom, and we're standing in Inglewood, and I was scared for my life. So I had a gun and the weed on me, just in case. You know what I mean? Because I didn't know where the fuck they were taking me. I just met these guys. I know how I met him was through Mac 10, and it started kind of with an argument. Mm-hmm. You know, not an argument, but like, you know, you ain't, da-da-da-da, you afraid, you white program director, right. Won't come, you know, all this. I'm like, fuck it, let's go. So Muggs picks me up one day and takes me to Inglewood, to his house, to meet, you know, all of his friends and, you know,
right.
All of that kind of stuff. So we're standing in his driveway. And rest in peace to his mom. We're standing there in the driveway, and a freaking LAPD car pulls up and just stops and hops out. And they look at Muggs, they look at everybody, and then they look over at me, and they're confused. Like, the hell is going on? Mm. And back then, I wore tan Dickies, K-Swiss shoes, and a white T-shirt to everything. That's just what I wore. You know what I mean? And they just got back in the car and took off. And Muggs tells a funny story. It's like, yeah, and he's the one that had the guns and weed on him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, And if that would have gone down, my career would have been over.
Yeah,
You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
But that's what it was.
Crazy. You mentioned payola. Like, I think that
Oh, please bring this up.
well, I think that back in the day, like, you know, I think, you know, payola was widely known that it was happening.
Yeah.
At a high level.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I always hear like, yo, back in the day, like you would like rock radio back in the day, you drop off like a fucking 8-ball of Coke to the PD or to the DJ or, but I'm like, how much of payola in the 90s, early 2000s was actually happening? And, you know, like you said, if you say you never took payola, that's like shit. To be in the 90s and to not take any money is crazy because it felt like everybody was doing it back then, right?
Let me explain it to you like this. I don't know. And you know why? Because since the time that I was 17, every label knew you can't buy him.
Right.
He's going to do what he's going to do.
Right. Like you're playing album cuts.
I'm playing album cuts. I'm going crazy. Well, how can we get Damien to do this?
Like, oh, this is the priority. Well, what if I don't want to play the priority?
Well, and and that was the thing is like they may give me a single, but when I heard the album, you know, I'd be like, fuck it, I'm not playing that, but I'll play this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I started kind of getting a name for just being this guy that just would do whatever the fuck he wants, and you better just get on board.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So honestly, I swear to God on my grandmother's soul that no one has ever approached me and offered the money because they just knew better. You know what I mean? And then after the things like with Muggs or meeting Big U or, you know, any of these kind of things, they knew, all right, and the Booyah Tribe thing or any of this kind of stuff, they're like, okay, well, we can't intimidate him. We're not going to be able to buy him. So maybe we should just back this motherfucker. You know what I mean? So, and I would, every year at Powerhouse, I would not only invite all of the artists, but I'd say, bring your homies too.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'd be running around introducing everybody. So I'd hear like this person is beefing with that person or this set doesn't get along with that set, and be careful putting, you know, Snoop's homies next to, you know, these people's homies. And the first thing I would do is say which ones. And then I'd walk up and introduce those two people.
Right.
And say, I'm Damien from Power, blah, 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 blah. Nice to meet you. Oh, you're so-and-so. Oh, do you know so-and-so from so-and-so? You know what I mean? So that started to get around too. So then Stan Shepard, good friend of mine, God bless you, Stan, I'm glad you're feeling better. He calls me up one day because he's managing DJ Quick. And I just want to meet Quick, but Quick was a beat artist. You know, Theo, who worked at the beat, and Quick were hella close. And I needed Quick on Power. Like that was another one I needed. And Stan saw this stuff happening, and I was talking to Stan one day. And, you know, we brought Quick to Power 106. And Stan, if you don't know Stan's history, Stan's father, I mean, black music was basically created in Stan's basement. His dad was Bunky Shepherd. I mean, they did Bad Mama Jamma in his basement. You know, so Stan was deeply rooted. I mean, he ran Jackson Communications for the Jacksons. You know, so he calls me up one day and he goes, come to this address on Havenhurst. I pull up to freaking Michael Jackson's estate, you know, the Jackson house. And I'm like, the hell is going on here? Like, what are we doing? You know, what's up? And he goes, I want you to go to this address on Sunset Plaza. And I'm like, for what? And he goes, I want you to meet this guy, Jim Brown. And I said, Jim Brown? Who's Jim Brown? And everybody in the room like looks at me like, I'm not a sports guy. I don't know nothing about sports.
The legendary running back?
Right. So they all look at me like, it's Jim Brown, like whatever. So I show up, and in the room is Jim Brown, Harry Belafonte, rest in peace, and James Ingram, rest in peace. And I'm like, James Ingram, or PYT from Michael Jackson. Harry Belafonte wrote Deo, and okay, Jim Brown is this guy that I've seen in the movies with OJ.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I walk out in the back, and they've got all of the gang leaders sitting there or some of the gang leaders sitting there at a table. And they go, we just started the American Foundation. It does gang intervention. What do you think? And that's what you've been basically doing at these shows and putting all these people together, and you're, you know, mixing up all these colors. Like, what do you think? And I said, I think they're like, how do we label it? And I said, you don't fucking label it. It's gang intervention. You know what I mean? Just fucking do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Stop
not a
pussyfooting
brand.
about
Yeah.
it. You know, just that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? And they were like, Jim looks over at me and goes, I never knew when you were going to come, but here you are.
Right.
And from then on, you know, Jim and I were great friends, and Harry and Stan and Connie Rice and Harry Belafonte's daughter was recording her, you know, thing. And, you know, I mean, just all of that kind of stuff happened. So
How crazy was like the radio war between the Beat and Power? Was it ever like because man, I've been a part of one radio real beef in Phoenix.
there was beef there. You know, that
was like
shit
a thing.
on the court, though. But what was so funny is, like, Michelle Less is one of my best friends.
Right.
You know what I mean? But when we were on the court, we played ball. You know what I'm saying?
Back then, bro,
No, it was
the
bad.
radio beef
no,
was
no,
crazy.
radio beef was crazy. But here's the thing, is I got along with everybody.
Yeah.
I didn't give a fuck about nothing. You know what I mean? It was like, look, we play hard on the field. And yeah, I just made it so, I mean, I'd cut them out. Like, for instance, because Dr. Dre, I helped Dr. Dre with 2001, the two 2001 shows that were in LA were powerhouses. They weren't up in smoke.
They weren't up in smoke.
They were powerhouses. Because I was literally on the phone with Dre as the first one selling out, with Dre saying, when do I have the second show? They're asking me about a second show. Hold on, I'm checking Ticketmaster. There's still seats available. Hold on. Well, guess what? They just sold out the first one. Go ahead and make that call. And he goes, yeah, that one's a powerhouse too. And I was like, wait. I said, Dre, wait. I said, dude, you just did Hawaii for us. You just did this. I would not be mad if it was a neutral show. Like, you don't have to do that for us. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's going to put you in political hot water with the other stations.
Right.
Like, I appreciate what you did, but I'm not trying to fuck your shit up. And he was like, fuck them, click, powerhouse. You know what I mean? And that was how the relationship was done. And so I was literally in every sessions. We were basically the radio, because we had so many stations.
Would something like that affect? Because MS at that time was a lot bigger than what it is. Obviously, what it ended up being. But
Yeah.
Would like a decision like that affect how Still DRE did nationwide at Clear Channel?
Well, really, you also have to remember, we had Power 106, Hot 97, 32 stations in the middle. We had Power 92 in Phoenix.
Oh,
we
shit.
had
Power 92 was
owned by
KKFR
Emmis.
No, you're right. Emmis was that fucking.
We were a beast.
Especially if you were a hip hop artist.
Oh yeah,
You had to keep.
and we
Emmis.
were breaking the records.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Like,
So,
you were the big.
Like, okay, so for instance,
in that format, you don't want to piss Emmis off.
So let's go back to Ja Rule, Between Me and
Yeah.
You, for instance. So after Holla Holla, I break Between Me and You, and I'm in the video, and I pop my collar, and it's a Power 106 logo, okay, in the video, walking with Shade Checks.
Yeah.
And Kevin Lyles gets on the phone, and he's like, God damn it, Damien, Radio 1, which owned The
Right.
Beat and all these other, they're going to drop all, Clear Channel, whatever it is, they're going to drop all of our records across the
'Cause you're in
country
the video.
because you're in the video with a Power 106 logo. And I'm like, blur it.
Yeah.
Just blur it. And that was that.
Is it blurred?
Yeah, so I mean, it was my suggestion. Irv's like, fuck them. Then drop my record. You know what I mean? Damien's been loyal. So drop the record. But see, even like with the street shit and you know, all of this kind of stuff, I mean, I knew everybody. So everybody just knew that guy's untouchable.
Right.
You know what I mean? If something happened, you wouldn't know where it came from.
Right.
He's friends with the Booyah Tribe. He's helped start Murder Inc., Rockefeller, and Aftermath. Like,
Right.
so there wasn't much anyone could say. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to drop every hot artist across?
Right.
They played the records they had to play. Like, you know, and just to say, like, for instance, even like when Ja Rule did the Jennifer Lopez record, you know, they literally stole that record from Glitter, you know, when I was rebuilding Mariah. You know, and Tommy did that to sabotage Mariah, and it just happened to be the song that I made with Ja and brought Ja to the table. And then Tommy said, well, okay, well, I'm going to make Ja do this record with Jennifer Lopez to fuck Mariah, but it put me in the middle of it. And Irv came to me and goes, what do I do? We've never been offered $250,000, $500,000 for 2 songs. You know, what do I do? I said, you do the fucking song. And they came to me and they said, well, are we going to play? Steve called me into a meeting and he goes, well, Jennifer Lopez just released this song. I know the background story because he was there when I told him what happened.
Right.
You know, and he's like, and I said, it's right for the radio station. We have to play it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I've never engaged in any bullshit. I just won't do it. Right. You know what I mean? That's just who I am. So whether it's that, whether it's, that's not me.
So I saw something you said. I didn't know, because I had always thought, was Shade Shiest your artist?
He was signed to MS Broadcasting.
Which is crazy to think that.
So I start producing records for Mariah.
But it would be like if like Apple had like a record label or.
So Rick Cummings comes to me and he says, look, there's all this outside money that you're making, and I was like, no, I didn't charge for I Still Believe. I'm not accepting any money for production. Like when I produced records, I'd say, no, I'm not taking any money because I don't want it to appear
because you're the
payola.
Program director.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a music director.
A music director.
Steve Smith was the program director.
But you were controlling the music of Power 106. Yeah.
So I never wanted it to be, and that's why I wasn't the program director of Power 106. Okay? Because I was producing records. I did not want to be the final say.
Right.
Okay? Clear.
Got it.
So
covering your ass.
And my deal went through the FCC. Right. When I renegotiated my deal, when I started producing records, I contacted the FCC through my attorney and said, is this a conflict of interest that I'm producing records and hold this position? They said, as long as you are not the final say, then it is not a conflict of interest.
Ah.
So Shade is somebody that I met, you know, just and we'd hang out on the weekends and do records and, you know, whatever, just as fun producer, you know what I mean? Yeah. Mariah Carey says to me one day, hey, what else do you do? I said, play with beats, you know, da-da-da-da. Oh, send me a tape. You know, well, one of them became I Still Believe, you know, with her, Crazy Bone and the Brat, the first record I ever produced. Shout out to Mariah. Thank you for giving me my shot. You know, all of this kind of stuff. So they see that. And Rick comes to me and goes, well, you produced on Ja Rule, you did this record with Mariah Carey, like, you know, are they making offers for labels? Like, you know, we want a cut of this. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, okay. He goes, well, we'll make you the senior director of programming. We'll bring in someone else to be the program director. And you keep doing what you're doing, but we want a label. Find out how much you could get for us getting a label. Mm. And I said, well, you need an artist. And they go, well, who's that kid that you hang out with? And I'm like, what? And it was that simple. Like, you make some records with some kid, right?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, Shade, that's my friend. He's like, well, he's the artist. Go find out if you can get him a deal. And I'm like, okay. So I go and I ask Fred Davis, who's Clive Davis's son, who was my lawyer. I say, what do you think? He goes, send me 4 songs and call me, you know, in a week. So I go and I make Where I Want to Be. Okay, I put Shade on it. I go and make a song with Corrupt, another song with Corrupt, a couple other songs. You know, and KG from Naughty by Nature is the one that gave me the beat for Where I Want to Be. You know, he produced the beat. I just put the vocals on it. And then I said, all right, well, here's a couple songs. Fred Davis calls and says, London Sire wants, will give you $750,000. And so I go to Rick Cummings and say, $750,000. And by the way, Irv Gotti says they'll give us another, you know, whatever, 40, 50 grand to give him the Nate Dogg song that we're not using, and this other song that I did with Ja Rule called Life Ain't a Game, but I'll do it under the Emmis deal because I don't want to, look like I'm taking the money for producing, and I'll just do it everything that I'm doing under Emmis. You know what I mean? Outside, whatever. So they're like, yeah, great. Well, Where I Want to Be comes out. It's the #1 rap single in the fucking country. And London Sire goes bankrupt. And I'm like, shit, what do I do? So they say...
But you guys already got the 750.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the single's out.
Yeah.
And it's all over the place. So I say, look, I'm not going to put shade out. Let's just call it a Damizza Presents album and say it's just, a one-off, whatever. And that I was just presenting a bunch of artists because that's what Flex does on his mixtapes or, whatever.
Right.
So let's just call it that. That way it won't burn the artist's name and it'll fall on me and we'll just keep moving. And then MCA pops up and says, we'll give you $1 million. And I'm like, what? And they're like, we'll give you $1 million for Shade Shiest, plus another $250 for the video. So I go to Rick Cummings and I go, well, here's another 1.2. And he's like, do it. And so I'm like, all right.
And this was, so all that money was going to Emmis?
Yeah. They say 50 Cent was the first artist to get $1 million. No, Shade Shiest was. 1.7 when it was all said and done, 2 million between 2 albums.
That's crazy. I mean, how much of that did he get to keep?
Huh?
How much of that did he keep though?
Who?
Like what was his deal points with Emmis?
He got the regular artist deal. He got like what, 25, 50 grand up front for each project, something like that. So he did all right.
Emmis was eating.
Oh, they were eating crazy because not only that, but I was giving them all my production. Dude, you got to think about it like this: the Dre and Snoop reunion promotion, right?
Right.
Think about that alone. They were selling it as packages to the rest of the country under the consultancy and taking their tax on it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Look, when Dre said they were the 2 powerhouses in Los Angeles, you don't think the sales department sold that?
Right.
And made like $30 million each one?
And then if you're the consultancy, you can say, hey,
we'll fly you in.
If you're in Raleigh, North Carolina, and you want your folks to go to Hawaii to see Snoop?
I made a lot of people rich. Let's just say that.
Do you regret moving in that way?
No. Do you know why? My grandma raised me, and I looked her in the face till the day she died.
I just think in terms of the Emmis thing, it's like...
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Because I never did this for money.
Right.
I did this... there's a funny story about Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre was on stage when they... At the 2001 reunion, they walked out on stage, right? And I took off... I said, my job is done. I took off my pass, and I went to the front row. I started losing my fucking mind.
Just enjoy it.
Dr. Dre almost falls over the monitor looking down going, what's wrong? What's wrong?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sitting there just going like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Everything's right. He's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, oh shit. He thinks like I'm trying to get his attention. Like, so I ran to the back of the thing to watch, right? After the show, Dre walks up to me and he goes, yo, what the fuck was that? What was the sound fucked up? What happened? I go, bro, you think I did this because I wanted to make money?
Right.
So, bro, I wanted to see the fucking show. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, no, I don't regret shit because I know I can sleep at night and I know my grandma raised me right and look, I don't care what the fuck the narrative is. I have never taken an artist dime from a motherfucker. I have never done anything that is not right for hip hop. And when I came back and when she died January 6th, by January 8th, I was back in California. When I got here, I turned on the radio. And when it was like a dad coming home off of vacation and the kids trashed the motherfucking house. When I left, DJ Quick had the very first independent deal through Fontana where he owned his masters and 80% of the revenue and got an advance with Brian Shafton. Because when Brian and Fontana started that independent distribution shit, DJ Quick, they came to me and said, who's the first artist that has SoundScan history that you could put through this? I said, oh, DJ Quick, Mad Science. Esteban Oriol, cartoon doing the logo, the red vinyl, that's all me.
Crazy.
So I said, here we go. And I said, now the artist is straight. I had enough power to create the independent deal for the artist where they own their own fucking masters. They're getting a higher 80% of the revenue. And I was pissed when I got home. Let's just say that.
Crazy.
And I went, okay. So this is the narrative. This is what's going on. All right. Then I hit that little button on Instagram, and here we are.
So let me ask you this. Like, you're obviously, break down, because you left Power 106 on your own will? Or what? Give me, because
Okay,
I know you would win.
all right, so
Because
here's
I
what
saw
happened.
you pretty much went to go work with Mariah, right?
Well, I'm not going to get in the Ryan story. That's
Okay.
way too long. We'll be
Yeah,
here all night.
okay.
But what happened is when they brought in Jimmy Steele and Val Mackey, okay?
Which is
Val
what
Mackey,
year?
this is 2002-ish,
Okay.
1-ish, whatever. Everything had already happened. The Dre Snoop stuff
Right.
and,
For
you know,
sure.
all of that history and, you know, all the big promotions. We were already number one. And
Right.
we basically went number one before any of these motherfuckers got there.
Right.
Right? So they come in, and the first thing that I notice is Val says the DJ or the mixers, they should be paying us because they're going to Hollywood and getting all these gigs.
We should get a cut of that.
And they should be paying us.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, yo, this bitch don't get it.
Right.
And we started it for the love of hip hop. You know what I mean? And I start to realize that that's not the game anymore. This is now corporate.
Right.
And my first meeting with her, she looks at me and goes, I can't equate you to a number. What do you do here? You're like, what? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, what, you pick the songs or something? And I'm like, oh, okay. So this is how this is going. Jimmy Steele comes in from an AC station, the Cougar in Dallas. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. And he's like, oh, I hear you're the most important person at the station, but I don't understand what you do. And for instance, before them, they brought in Mike Tierney. Okay, Mike Tierney comes in, stays about a week. At the end of the week, he goes, dude, what do they expect me to do here? Babysit you? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're making all the decisions. You're doing all the promotions. Like, I mean, they hired a babysitter. And then he goes, he just leaves. He doesn't resign, doesn't do nothing, just fucking leaves. So Val Mackey comes in and says, yo, anybody heard from Mike Tierney? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, he hasn't showed up for a week. And I'm like, I don't know. So I finally get a hold of Mike Tierney and goes, dude, that bitch don't know what she's doing, dog. Like, she's telling me all this crazy shit, how we need to cut this and charge mixers this and babysit.
Which is crazy,
you know,
yeah.
like, doesn't understand what you do and why you're making this and why we have a record label and, you know, wants to take the record company money and just put it straight to the bottom line and why you're working in a studio and why don't we just make a studio at the office and make the artists do the songs and, you know, all this kind of shit. And I'm like, I go to Rick Cummings, I'm like, bro, you got her running the record company with me now. Do you see what I'm saying? And telling me this stuff and trying to A&R the records and tell me what I need to be doing, and now all of so the label folds. Well, keep in mind, when I started helping Mariah Carey and we started the record label, some people in New York got mad. We'll just leave it at that. Okay? So they call their friends at the LA Times and they plaster on the LA Times airplay raises disclosure issue. And they say I'm more powerful than Radio Disney, and that Shade Shice is my artist, and I'm getting all this money from Mariah Carey and all these people and da-da-da, and blast me on the fucking thing. Rick Cummings doesn't back me up. He doesn't say Shade really like that, go out there and bang and say, no, it's our artist. He throws me under the bus. And I'm like, oh, this is how this is going to go. Okay, you don't know what you're doing. You're my new babysitter,
You're scared.
and this bitch is crazy.
Yeah.
All right? So I'm like, whatever. So then they come to me, Jimmy says to me, he goes, we're going to flip the country station and make it mega. And I'm like, no, I don't think you should do that because then it would be an upper demo R&B station, which would take our upper demo
Right.
at Power 106. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay. You do that, we're going to have a problem. Nah. And by the way, I rented a spot on the stick. And I'm like, what? I rented a spot on the antenna. We're getting like $5,000 a month from another station that's going to come on the air. And I said, well, we're X percentage Hispanic in Los Angeles. You don't think whatever they put on that signal is going to come at us?
Right.
Because we're the number one Latino rhythmic station. The Beat is a black station.
Right.
So you don't think that's going to come right at us? And he goes, nah, we have a contract with them. And I said, well, We'll sue them if they do. And I go, well, how did you put racism in a contract? And he's like, well, they just can't do anything Latino. Trust me. Latino 96.3 comes on the air next. I look at him, everybody, and I'm going, oh my God, like what the fuck is going on? And then it was Thanksgiving, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I go home, have Thanksgiving with my grandma, and she falls down, she was putting away the Thanksgiving stuff, and she was taking down the Christmas stuff, and she fell. And I just said, okay, I'm done. I said, from now on, I'm taking care of grandma. Remember when I said, look, when I was a year old, I was abandoned on her doorstep. When I was 7 years old, I told her, you take care of me now, I'll take care of you then. The second she hit the ground, I said, I'm done with all of it. Then I just started being her full-time caregiver, her bodyguard, or whatever the hell you want to call it, her whatever, and just started helping around the house. Well, my two little brothers are in high school. They all have friends that are rappers and shit. They come to me. They start bringing all the kids. I start, wait, you guys are hanging out with gangs in Santa Barbara? They start stealing my plaques and shit. So I'm like, look, oh, Dr. Dre plaque? Oh, go ahead, take that. Just stay the fuck out of the street. And I start producing these kids. Start doing gang intervention, what I was doing with Jim and all this stuff, at home. My friend Wino comes along, rest in peace, introduces me to Bams and Skippy, and, that's how it all started. Bam's parents were both incarcerated. He starts staying with us. Next thing you know, I meet my best friend. You know what I'm saying? Start developing him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how long it took to develop Bams. I left in 2004 or 5. Something like that. But Bams wasn't just a rapper.
So in 04, 05, and when you leave the station, do you also just like mentally check out from like
everything?
Just all the music shit?
It just became about grandma.
Yeah.
I literally resigned. And that's why, people dislike me so much, is I literally told Mariah, I put Mariah with Benny Medina and fixed all that stuff, sent her to Atlanta and said, bring me back an Usher record, have Jermaine just do We Belong, and that was We Belong Together. Set her up with Benny Medina and said, bye. Then Power 106, obviously you guys are the Titanic at this point. I can't even do anything with that.
Yeah.
Bye. And Dre and Snoop, it was just like they were already doing what they were doing.
Right.
The last thing I did with Dre and Snoop in that group is Eminem calls me up and says, do you know 50 Cent? I was like, no. He goes, I need to do a Kmart Shoppers on Power 106. And I'm like, what's that mean? And he goes, I need to go on Power 106 and say, somebody find me 50 Cent. That was the last thing that I did, I think, in that
era.
Click.
Wow.
And so then I just walked away from everything, and it became about my grandma. My dad was still a biker. He was drunk, their mom, whatever, but my little brothers ended up living with me. So I ended up raising my little brothers and taking care of my grandma. The only thing I cared about the music business is when I could use the music business or what I had done in the music to help get the kids off the street. Do you know what I'm saying? So if there was a concert, like Little Rob would come through Santa Barbara or something like that, and all the kids would get excited, then I'd make a phone call to Fingers and say, hey, could you hook this up?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the kids want to go.
Yeah. Hey, we got to stop the interview to tell you about our folks at MyBookie. That's right. NBA Finals are here. So many over-unders. So much going on. I mean, look, I think I'm hammering the Mavericks to come back and win 2 games. I don't know. I could be wrong. But look, Mavs, Celtics, we got NFL season coming up. We got baseball, man. We're in the thick of the baseball season. WNBA bets are going crazy. And, of course, the full live casino, all available, mybookie.ag. You got to pull up to MyBookie and sign up for a new account right now. When you sign up for a new account, use the promo code Bootleg, and you'll get that first deposit bonus. That's how they do things. Get on the action, man. It could be UFC, boxing. There's so many big fight weekends happening, man. So much going on. All you got to do is go to MyBookie, man, if you want to get in on the action. Trust me when I say I've been using MyBookie for about 9 years now, 8 or 9 years. It's the best, man. Easy to get your money out. It's just the best. What are we talking about? MyBookie.ag. Sign up for a new account using that promo code Bootleg right now. Also, shout out to the good folks at Blue Chew. Shout out to Blue Chew, man. Look, it's hot as hell outside. I don't know what that has to do with Blue Chew, but usually when it's hot, you want to fuck some more. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, if you would like get over your erectile dysfunction if you're dealing with that. Maybe you're a little stressed at work. Maybe you're tired of your partner. Maybe. Maybe. Well, guess what? You can try Blue Chew right now. A free month supply of Blue Chew delivered right to your door. Go to BlueChew.com. Use the promo code BOOTLEG right now, and they will send you a month's supply for free for only $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. Promo code BOOTLEG. Now, what is Blue Chew? It is the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis. It is in a chewable form. It is delivered right to your doorstep in a discreet package. And the best part about all of this, you don't have to go sit down and talk to a doctor in person. Everything's online. It's quick. Boom, boom, boom. And then your dick is rah. You know what I'm saying? That sounded like a designer ad lib. You know what I'm saying? But look, your penis will be fucking yoked up, bruh. Go to BlueChew.com. Promo code BOOTLEG. Let's get back to the interview.
That was the extent of it.
That's crazy. Were you able to parlay your production stuff into like pub situations or
no?
Because
every cent that I made during my record time, you have to remember, first off, I made at the height of my career at Power 106, I was making 250 grand, maybe 300.
Right.
I never took, the only money that I ever took was to fix glitter, and that was like 250. You know what I mean? So I probably made 500.
Right.
But most of the people around me were embezzling and doing all kinds of crazy shit anyway. So,
for sure.
I literally...
The 90s are crazy.
Yeah, but, I had little royalties like...
Mix Show Power Summit, I heard, was nuts.
Oh, no. You don't even know.
Oh, no, I've heard. I heard there was like a room full of fucking...
Dude... There was all kinds of shit, but
like would you go to? You obviously been.
Obviously, I went to all of them. Gavin, but that's the thing about
Is
with
the room
radio
full of hookers a real thing?
Oh hell yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it was part of the whole.
Like I heard if you went to Mixo Power Summit back in the day, and they were just a room and like everybody was fucking. Like, yeah, go grab you a bitch. The labels got it.
You know what? Any of those, someone asked me about Puffy the other day, and someone asked, did you ever see anything, or did you ever go to those parties? No, it's just not who I am. I went to work. When the job was done, I went home.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing with Puffy, too, is like, I know hella people that have been to Diddy parties. It's not like just because you went to a Diddy party, you saw
let me tell you a Diddy
crazy
story.
shit.
Diddy looked out for me a lot. You know what I mean? And I'm not, look, what happened with Cassie and all that shit.
Of course.
He deserves whatever, whatever. But, and his kids don't, by the way.
I agree.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, don't treat the sins of your father. I love Quincy. Quincy and I talk a lot. You know what I mean? I love Quincy.
I mean, his son Christian's...
Another friend of mine, Miles Gaines, works with Christian a lot. You know what I mean? Like, so, look, whatever. And I love... And let me just say this.
He's got daughters that are in high school.
But check this out. When my grandma had to have knee surgeries, right? Puffy and I were supposed to have a meeting, and I said to Puff, I can't go. I got to go to Santa Barbara. I got to go do this thing. My grandma's in the hospital. So what's wrong? I had her knees done. He's like, oh, no, go ahead. What hospital? I said, oh, someplace, Cottage Hospital, blah, 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 whatever. Went. Dude, when I got from L.A. to Santa Barbara, the whole floor was buzzing. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? There's flowers everywhere and all this stuff. And two nurses are in there, like, taking care of Grandma. And Grandma's, like, smiling and shit. And I'm like... the hell just happened? And she's like, Puffy called. And I was like, what? She goes, Puffy called the nurses, sent me flowers, and said I needed to be treated very special because I'm an important person. That's the kind of shit he did. You know what I mean? So this guy, I don't know. You know what I mean? So what I saw, I was mortified because I've never seen that guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So... But I know when I wanted to do Puffy in Paradise back in the day, which was my first big promotion, I know he put 250 grand behind me to do it.
Right.
Or the station, not me, excuse me. And paid for the promotion. You know what I mean?
To pay for the listeners.
And that's how I met Benny Medina. So fast forward, when he left Jennifer Lopez, right after Glitter with Mariah Carey, I knew him through Will Smith too. So I just said... perfect thing to do here is put Benny and
Mariah together. That shit's crazy.
And did Jay-Z's first #1 too? Put Jay-Z and Mariah together for Heartbreaker. Come on, bro. We don't play over here.
What are your thoughts nowadays when you hear, LA radio? Like, what are your thoughts just radio in general? Obviously, you were a part of an era of radio that was.
Why do you think I came back so tough? I was just gonna just come back and hang out and slowly get back, figure out what I wanted to do. My grandma just died 2 months before that. Rest in peace, Angel. My little nephew dies, overdoses. My dad died the year before. Dude, when I came back, 2 weeks after that, from getting home, my dog dies. The poodle, grandma's poodle, realizes that she's dead. She dies.
Yeah.
Thank God for Bam, Skippy, my family, my friends, Gabe. Everybody, his wife Talia, and everybody that when I got home, I was a wreck when I got back. Dog.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, come on, that's Granny. You know what I mean? Like, the last 5 years I spent in Louisiana, just her and me in the house being a full-time caregiver. That's it. We didn't really have internet like that because in rural Louisiana, in a town of 200, it's a cloud in the sky. You don't get fucking internet. You don't get direct TV.
Right.
So it's just me and a 96-year-old lady just sitting there rapping. But that's my dog. That's my grandma. That's the homie. You know what I mean? Like, so we had a blast. We made it the best of anything. You know what I mean? So whatever. So I get back, I hear all this shit. I'm like, God, what the fuck did y'all do? Like, and I just start tearing off. What do I think of it? I think, dude, the same people. Rick is still in charge
Of Power?
Oh yeah, you don't know who the consultants are? Rick and Jimmy.
Yeah, I know Jimmy was a consultant.
That's
I didn't
why
know
they
Rick
haven't had a
Cummings
PD in 2 years.
Right. Yeah,
Because no one will take the
Amarillo
job.
owns it now, and yeah, they're
Okay, I'm gonna shut up. I don't want to. I don't want to be negative.
Their leadership, and I'm real tight with E-Man. That's my dog, man.
Look, I love E. I
just
brought
think
E
that, like you said,
from a mixer into the music
well,
department.
P.O.'s the PD now.
Great.
Yeah, but they didn't have a PD for a while, and it was like, why don't you guys
Okay,
make
but
E-Man
look
the
at
PD?
Hot 97's ratings right now, and tell me that was a good move.
Yeah, I am not hip to Hot 97's ratings, so I can't tell you.
Okay.
But
I'm going to leave it at that. I'm just going to say radio is not programmed correctly. And you have to understand the reason why we have not had a hit in the 51 years of hip-hop or 50 years anniversary of hip-hop is because only 26% of Americans have in inner city neighborhoods and low-income areas and rural areas like I came from have data plans on their phones.
right.
So they're not sitting on TikTok. They're not sitting on Spotify. They can't afford YouTube and all of those because they're at work every day. What do they have? 96% of America still listens to the radio. Radio is not breaking records. It's automated, and they fired all the DJs. The record company has fired all the radio promotion people, and radio is programmed like shit.
I think that the main issue, though, is revenue in radio has fallen off of a cliff.
Do you know why it's fallen off of a cliff?
Well, it kind of started.
How many DJs do you know that's under 20?
Well,
In the core demo, how many people you know in the core that are programming radio in the core demo of any of these radio stations?
a few for sure.
That are in the core regionally, not programming regionally, that are sitting in the radio station in the demo programming to the audience. That'll go out in the streets and know what that radio station needs to be playing.
There's a few. There's a few,
please.
but I would say this.
I'd see Big Bear maybe.
Bear,
He's not in the demo, but he knows what he's doing.
DJ Amen and DJ AO are.
Oh no, those guys, those
sure.
two. Look, there's probably,
I think this. I think you gotta I think radio.
but they're programming regionally.
Well, they're also programming locally. Like Amen handles Real 92.3.
Oh, I'm not talking about that one.
No, but what I'm saying is
What Doc does is fucking amazing.
What I'm saying is, with the revenue in terms of like these networks and the buys that used to happen back in the day, it's just
When I say it's not,
the Cume ain't there anymore,
got
right?
it.
So the Cume is falling off of a cliff. The listenership is falling off of a cliff because, listen,
it hasn't evolved. That's why.
it hasn't evolved, but also like the competition is at a higher level because, like you said, obviously 96% of people still listen to radio, whether they know it or not. They might hop in an Uber,
But
they
it
might be
could
in a
work-
cab.
look.
But at the same time, it's very, very like I feel like YouTube is the new radio because it's free. Spotify, you got to pay for. But I feel like
Radio's free.
No, I understand that, but radio is like almost like I'll say this: there's kids in Gaza popping on TikTok right now.
Got it.
Because they're able to document what's happening on their cell
Understand.
phones. Most people have access to their phone. Is that fair to say?
Let me put it to you like this. I'm not going to give them the prescription on this show,
Right.
but I will tell you right now there is a way to do it.
No, I think that radio, unfortunately, has become overly simplified.
Yeah. Bastardized is the way to put it.
As to where there isn't necessarily a one size fits all fixed to every radio station, and at times they're treated like, well, if we do it here, we do it here, we do it here, it's going to work, as opposed to...
Do you remember 97? It was the same thing.
Oh, in 97, I was 10.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it was the same thing. It was
So
fragmented like that.
Yeah, and like, I do think, radio is heading to a place where most stations are depreciating assets, so you have to figure out ways to try to just increase. Like you said, you figured that out when that lady came in and said, well, I can't put a dollar figure on what you do. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, most of these radio stations are corporately owned. They are businesses, and the culture aspect or the edges that make it make sense aren't necessarily understood or quantified in a dollars and cents spreadsheet. Where it's like, hey, well, we know if we can cut this and we can have this, we can make X amount of money and we're profitable.
I understand what you're saying. But
So-
I'm telling you there is a way to do it.
I'm not saying that there's not. And again, we're talking hip hop radio. There's so many formats of radio.
yeah.
There's AM, FM.
But look, everybody is, like you said when we first sat down, you saw a video of mine where I said it's absolute. It's either red or blue, Republican, Democrat, blood, Crip. There's nothing in the fucking middle.
Right, and you're right about, like, with radio, the answer's somewhere in the middle, right?
Between tech and radio, there is a handshake. And
Yeah.
there is a way that it could happen very easily.
Yeah.
You're asking, I mean, literally, like, I know exactly what to do. And everybody would make money. But the problem is these corporations are attached to the DSPs, and the DSPs are putting out a narrative that there is no resurrection to radio.
Yeah, no, DSP is definitely, it is in there. It's in DSP's best interest if radio's dead.
Okay, so 2 days ago, Jermaine Dupri and I were having a discussion or he was having a discussion, and Tega, shout out Tega, Montega the Mobster, posts a thing, tags me and Jermaine in it, and says, I'd like to be broken on radio, and immediately gets flagged and taken down.
On
Instagram.
That's weird.
Yeah. For what? I posted on my thing. Take a look at it sometime. But the narrative of, I bet you Facebook's going to try to come up with something. But whatever.
I would say this, like,
Spotify doesn't want you listening to the radio. Let's say that. A lot of those platforms do not want you listening to the radio.
I don't disagree with that because it's against their. I mean, they want people on their platform. Why would I want people listening to the radio if I could have them listening to my product?
Exactly.
And vice versa.
But I'm telling you,
if I'm iHeartRadio, I want you listening to my shit and not listening to a playlist on Spotify.
100%.
And so that's my thing is, like, nowadays, like, yo, like at the end of the day, like you said, you got your answer. It's just an interesting time because we've never had to compete with so much. Like, as a radio personality, you have to compete with all of this.
I totally understand what you're saying.
The bandwidth grab of people's attention is like everyone's attention's up for grabs.
I totally understand what you're saying.
It's like I lay down at night and I might put Netflix on or play my PS5, but my wife is scrolling on TikTok, just looking at bullshit, And I'm like, yo, let's watch this movie. It's just in all forms of entertainment, man. The bandwidth is up for grabs more than ever.
Right.
So it's like, how do you make radio special enough?
There's also a very big hole that could be filled. And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well.
And it might just happen soon.
I look forward to seeing what you got up your sleeve, sir. What else are you working on? Obviously, you're working with bands.
Oh man, I'm just, you know what? I met Solus and Lefty Gunplay.
Yeah, shout out to OTR, man.
And OTR. And, you know, I've had a lot of fun working with them. I have fun doing some projects with Poon. I'm having fun, you know, just all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah.
So, but really my focus is BAMs. You know, I enjoy making music. I enjoy doing that kind of stuff, working on some, I'm going to, in October, I'm going to be doing a synergy marketing seminar in Los Angeles. Michelle S. and Power Talent Agency is helping me put it together. But what I've basically done with the Instagram thing and giving up the game, I'm going to do with Syracuse University, and where Michelle teaches. They have a campus here in Los Angeles. I hope that everything goes as planned. And Michelle S. and myself and Power Talent, Kool-Aid, and
I just saw Edub yesterday. He was at my restaurant.
yeah, we're gonna do
Big
something
Bad
crazy.
Network.
It's not.
Yeah, that's the first.
Kool-Aid's one of my best friends.
First time I ever got paid to do anything in radio that wasn't set up a tent was to be a board op to throw her show on. I board opped Pocos Pero Locos.
And when you know, when it was funny because when Kool-Aid first brought Pocos Pero Locos, they said no, and that was one of the first specialty shows. Well, I mean, it's very special to me because it was a project that I got greenlighted.
Yeah, I think right now.
Another thing they told me that was absolutely impossible.
I told Edub that yesterday. I was like, yo, like the Mexican rap shit's hotter than ever right now. There might be a missing specialty show.
There's definitely something missing.
Yeah, for sure, man. So all right, well, look, go follow this guy. You know, appreciate some of the stories.
Didn't mean.
I know you got some crazy stories.
Oh. Crazy.
Many more. Would you ever write a book or anything like that?
I did write a book.
You did
Guilty
write a
by
book.
Association. And you know what's funny is I wrote Guilty by Association, and
What year did you write it?
It was like 2012, 14.
Okay.
But as soon as I said I was writing a book, you know, they said, "Oh, it's going to be a tell-all on Mariah Carey. Oh, he's going to write a tell." I was like, "Bro, there's different chapters about. There's 12 chapters. You know, it's not even like that. Like it's a story about a kid from Santa Barbara who had a dream that made it. You know what I mean? Like for instance, my friend Pharaoh in the juvenile detention centers here in Los Angeles, during COVID, they gave my book to the kids in the juvenile hall, and then I went to Sylmar to talk. I mean, I'm heavily involved in the juvenile system. Like, I mean, I've been working in gang intervention and the systems since Jim Brown.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Pharaoh, who happened to be an intern for me at Baby Ree when he was a kid, now works in the system.
For people who aren't aware,
Yeah.
what was your relationship with Mariah for the people who don't know, obviously, outside of working with her?
That's an interesting question. We were... Anything that you could say happened did. You know, whether it be friendship, whether it be working, whether it was dating, whatever the fuck it was, it all went down.
Yeah.
We were best friends, and it turned into something really cool that ended up being bullshit. I mean, I started around the time of Glitter. I even introduced her to Eminem and went through all of that. And
So essentially, you went to working with her, to getting romantic, to
everything.
Yeah, everything.
We were best friends that ended up we were both being attacked from two different sides. And when I chose to help her, I went against the system, the Sony system to begin with. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's where a lot of the narrative of some of the bullshit started. You know, is when I'll tell you one Mariah Carey story. The first time I went to dinner in New York with Mariah Carey, I get a phone call from Steve Stout, and he was the president of Black Music for Sony. And he says, "What are you doing in New York?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You having dinner with Mariah Carey right now?" And I said, "What? How do you know that I'm in New York, and how do you know who I'm having dinner with?" He goes, "Come next door. I want you to meet somebody." I said, "Who?" I walk in, and Tommy Mottola is sitting there. The first thing out of his mouth is says, "So you know my ex-wife?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You fucking her?" That's how that started. And if you know me, you know that, like, yo, I'm all about the underdog. I help the kids in the street. If I see somebody, first shot, I give them advice. I sit there and give up free game all day on my Instagram. If I see something wrong like that, and especially when it comes to a woman and someone that is a kid, a woman, an unfair advantage, which I feel this music business is, I sit there and I talk about it. And that's how we became friends. And when Glitter happened, she said, look, I need you to help me fix this. So I literally spent the next however long up till we belonged together helping her rebuild that career. Now, along that path, we became best friends.
Right.
That turned into something a little more.
Right.
It happens when you spend 24 hours a day and 7 days a week with a person. Like if I was in New York, I was staying at her house, then I walk to Hot 97.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If she was in LA, she'd stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel, I stay with her and go to work at Power 106. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it was.
What resulted in you guys parting, if you will?
Because I said I'm leaving. I'm going home to Santa Barbara to take care of my grandmother.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in this situation anymore. Look, I could not sit there and take care of my grandma and also take care of the highest maintenance artist in the world.
Right.
And she could not process that. And then everything became like, for instance, when I said I want to write a book, I get a letter from a lawyer. I'm like,
make sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I put it up, I thought it was a joke at first, so I made it my MySpace fucking profile picture. And then I find out she thinks that I'm going to go spill her beans. Like, you obviously didn't know me, bitch.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sorry. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the best friend you've ever had. Like, I know what really happened.
Yeah.
And I've kept all of these people's secrets. Right. And you're out there talking shit about me, bro?
Right.
That's what I'm finding out now.
Right.
Because since I've been back, I start hearing all this shit. I'm like, oh, that's the narrative? Oh, that's what happened? Oh, okay. Like, I ain't like you, so I'm not going to go out there and start spilling shit. But when I see you, let's see you try to say that to me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Let's see what they say when I see you in your face. Because, dog, nah.
Crazy. Well, listen, man, you've had I look forward to see, you obviously have had a legendary run.
Sorry to get serious. I'm sorry.
No,
but let me say this. When I had breakfast with Big Boy, when I first came back, and I love Big, you know what I'm saying? Because
Big's a great guy, man.
Greatest guy on the planet. And when I came back, Kool-Aid is the first person I sat down with. And I was an emotional wreck. And she said, you just got to keep showing up. Keep showing up. Just go, just work, do something. And she got me off the couch. I went and saw Big Boy. And Big Boy brought you up like literally 2 seconds after it was, hi, how you doing and stuff. Your biggest fan is Big Boy.
Love Big, man.
And so, I love what you're doing. I watch what you're doing. Yo, dude, you're doing it right.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
And I love the syndication stuff you're doing. I love all of it. And and from the people that I run into, you're doing it right.
I appreciate it, man. I'm trying.
All of these other places and some podcasts and stuff, they have the internal stuff, whatever. You always keep it clean, and I appreciate it.
Definitely.
What you're doing for hip-hop, I appreciate.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for pulling up and sharing.
And thank you for what you did for my little brother.
Yeah.
Because my grandma and Bams, and my grandma and Wino, and Sweet Pea is, the little doggy is happy as shit right now.
Shout out to the dogs, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shout out Big Bams and Big Skips.
Well, look, be on the lookout for your summit. Obviously, if you're not following this guy, what's your IG so people, because you've been giving out a lot of dope game online.
At Damizza on Instagram, Damizza Presents on YouTube, and at Damizza on Twitter.
Where's Shade Shiest at?
No idea. At some point, when it was funny, when we did What Would You Do, that's where the split was. When we did What Would You Do, he did not like that song. I said, it's Mariah Carey and Nate Dogg, when we were talking about another artist and substances and stuff like that,
yeah.
I think at that point in his life, there was some stuff going on. And he said, I don't like that song. And I was like, he goes, you write it, I'll do it. And I was like, all right. So I wrote What Would You Do? Right?
Crazy.
I laid the reference vocal. He said, I'll do the third verse. You stay on the first verse and whatever. So that's me rapping What Would You Do?
That's fucking crazy.
And cruising. And, well, forget it.
Crazy, man. Last question. Just random ones.
There's a
just
few
popped in my
records
head.
I wrote that nobody knows for a lot of artists during that era.
That's crazy. Who's the biggest what if, coulda, shoulda, woulda been artist in your opinion?
What do you mean?
Like, which artist do you feel like had everything that it took to be just massive, but either got in their own way or shit got cut short or...
I'd never put someone on blast like that.
I'm not talking about putting somebody on blast. Like, you know, I think to myself, like, you know...
I just, you know, but that's
there's artists like in my... Like, not even like necessarily... I'll take out the...
You know what? I will say
How about this? I'll take out the narrative of getting in their own way.
Okay, no,
but just
I'll tell you
artists you
this.
think should have been bigger.
Okay. Nate Dogg, rest in peace. Because if he had lived, none of this shit would be happening.
Yeah.
And Hale, his son, is a fucking beast.
Yeah. Yeah, Nate, I mean, shit, dude.
Nige is a beast.
Yeah, losing Nate Dogg just changed, like, what a lot of people's radio records would sound like for years.
And I don't hear it enough. Nate Dogg, rest in peace, and I love you.
Yeah. Shout out to Damizza. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Fire.
Thanks, guy.
Boom.